Sigma have just announced two new lenses for Fuji X mount. Sigma 23mm f1.4 DC DN Contemporary and Sigma 100 to 400mm f5 to f6.3 DC DN OS Contemporary. They are following in the footsteps of a very good 18 to 50mm for Fuji X mount, and these two new or revived lenses are a very welcome addition to Sigma's new Fuji X lineup. In this video, I'll talk about their performance, build and what they are good for, and hopefully help you to decide if either of them or both of them are good enough for your Fuji camera. I have reviewed both of these lenses in the past, the original reincarnation of them, so if you want to check these reviews out, which are absolutely full of samples shot with them, the links are in the description below. Firstly, let's talk about the little 23mm. The original version only came out earlier this year, and it still is a lens made especially for APS-C sensor cameras. It was released for Sony E and L mount. It offers 35mm focal length in the full frame terms, very versatile standard lens suitable for all kinds of shooting scenarios. It's not exactly wide angle, but wide enough to be one. It's also just not quite standard focal length, but almost standard. The wide aperture of f1.4 allows you to have very good subject to background separation and also allows you to shoot in lower lighting conditions. It creates really nice and slightly swirly bokeh, which I'm a huge fan of. This look is certainly not for everyone, and it is totally a personal preference, but I think it's cool and definitely on par with bigger and much more expensive lenses than this. Ultra sharp performance. This lens, in my opinion, is sharper than a lot of Fuji owned lenses, certainly performing to a very high standard. Very easy to nail great images with it too. Very good all-rounder, and a focal length good for portrait, street photography and more. This lens is small, it weighs only 340 grams, and it will fit well with any current Fuji camera, but there is no hiding that visually it is not really matching Fuji camera's look. It has got that streamlined, plasticky Sony look to it for sure. There are no switches or buttons on the lens, only this wide focus ring, which is smooth and well dampened. It also allows autofocus override as soon as you touch the focus ring. 52mm filter thread and dust and splash resistant construction. It's a lens that is simple but very effective. It costs £449 here in UK or $549 in US. Good price for a lens of this caliber, but it has got competition from Fuji owned 23rds, low-end 23mm f2 and high-end and more sophisticated 23mm f1.4R LM WR, which is more expensive and much bigger than this. Overall, I really like it. I liked it on Sony and Lumix, but I must say that it feels even better on my little Fujifilm X-S20. Highly recommended. Okay, let's talk about this big boy. 100 to 400mm f5 to f6.3 telephoto. That's 150 to 600mm on a full frame. That's a huge range for a lens that at first seems big, but not that big if you compare it to any 600mm full frame lens. This lens was originally made for DSLR cameras HSM version, which was upgraded and improved for mirrorless Sony E and L mount full frame cameras with DC DN version. Now they have adapted it again for APS-C Fuji cameras, not only Fuji X mount but also some other little changes. This is a lens made for wildlife and close-up photography, although not the fastest of zooms out there with not so wide changeable aperture, but one that is very well priced and one that delivers outstanding results. This lens is stabilized, and getting sharp results handheld even at the full length of the zoom are not only possible but easy to achieve. This lens is great for getting close to your subject which is far away, or just for getting macro-like shots. Versatile zoom for all those situations when you need that reach. Even though f5.6 to f6.3 doesn't seem like much, but it is a telephoto lens, and thanks to zoom compression you do get nice subject to background separation, totally different than with wide aperture primes like the 23mm. Closer you are to your subject and more you zoom in, more the background is going to blur, but it will seem like the background is larger and it is right behind the subject. This creates a little bit more unusual look, and it is great not only when shooting close-ups but also for portrait. It's a long lens. It also extends when zooming in. It's designed to zoom in a standard way by turning the zoom ring, but you can also just pull or push the lens in to make it a little bit quicker. Zoom ring is a little bit tough, and if you zoom in and out a lot, this could come in very handy. There's no supply lens color, you can buy it separately, and for a lens that weighs just over 1 kilogram, it is needed for sure. I like using lens collars on big zooms as a handle when carrying the lens with the camera attached to it to reduce stress on the camera's mount. And the lens collar is needed when shooting from the tripod a lot. 67mm filter thread, and the lens is fully weather sealed. There's a lot of switches on the lens. Gone AF MF switch, now you have AF and AFL AF lock. I don't even know what it does. I guess it makes AF lock button work when you engage the switch. There's focus distance limiter. This is handy when the lens autofocus hunts. As with all lenses like this, the focus has got a long way to travel from minimum focusing distance to infinity, and this basically limits the focal focus range to a certain range. You also have the image stabilization switch off, standard stabilization for everyday usage, and stabilization when panning. All work very well, even when filming handheld at the long end of the zoom. Price-wise, it costs £899 here in UK or $950 in US. Not bad for 150 to 600mm telephoto. Also, its main competition, 100 to 400mm Fuji lens, is almost double the price, and it is also bigger and heavier. It is, however, a little bit faster, just a little. Overall, very good value for money when you need this kind of big zoom, big range. Maybe not fast enough to shoot fast-paced sports with, but good enough for everything else. A lens that keeps giving, in my opinion. I like the previous incarnations and I do love it on my little X-S20. Recommended. And this is it from me. I hope this video was in some way helpful. If it was, please give me the thumbs up. If you want to see more sample shot with both of these lenses, check out my full individual reviews. Follow me on Instagram and consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Overall, that's huge for a lens. That's huge. That's a huge range for a lens. This could come in handy. This lens was originally made for DSLR cameras 67.